Hello and welcome to the 2021 French GP strategy analysis for McLaren, where I'll be running through the strategy comparison, position movements, and race pace. This is one of the team videos. If you want to look at the race overview video or any of the other teams, then hop across to the F1 strategy channel. So looking at a comparison strategy, quite similar in terms of medium onto hard tyres, but a bit of a mini split from my perspective here, with Norris going quite long on those medium tyres, whereas Ricciardo came in relatively early and as a result was able to undercut both Gasly and Sainz. So I think here from McLaren, great strategy in terms of doing a mini split between how long they were out there. And as a result, Ricciardo was able to get ahead, whereas Norris on the much fresher tyres was able to come back through the field. And he was a little bit slower staying out longer compared to Ricciardo, but he wasn't actually that much slower in terms of race pace for those laps where he was on the medium and Ricciardo was on the hard. So McLaren did a great job here. And given what the first two laps looked like between the two teammates, actually did quite a good job, 5th and 6th, without much of a battle between the teammates later on in the race. So quickly looking at the positions, so quite a few position movements here for Ricciardo and Norris. Ricciardo getting past Norris at the start and holding that position before getting past Alonso and then Leclerc, having that early pit stop and jump in quite a few people with that undercut, namely Gasly and Sainz, who are ahead of him, and then nice job moving up the order through a series of overtakes and also just others pit in. Norris getting past him and otherwise just holding on through to the end, holding off Gasly in the end. He was his main competitor behind him, but Gasly didn't quite have the tyres even though he had DRS to get past. Looking at Norris in comparison, not the best first lap, but apart from that, held his position behind Ricciardo and obviously moving up as others were pitting. And for a while there, it was looking like a little bit of a maybe this strategy isn't going to work out, but once he pitted and we saw everyone else's tyres really starting to go off and he had much fresher tyres, able to move through the midfield very quickly and ended up 5th. Great result. Looking at race pace here, so Ricciardo on the top here, Norris having a lead down here. You can see Norris really stuck with Ricciardo and was starting to gain on him a little bit in those last few laps there, but really sitting between 2 and 3 seconds. Once Ricciardo pits, you can see he does start to make some time back off on Norris, but not a lot, especially after those first 5 or 6 laps with the fresh tyres. And then once Norris pits, he quickly catches Ricciardo really and all the other midfield through these laps, and those last 3 laps for Ricciardo were a lot slower as those tyres fell off and ended up with about a 12-second gap between the two teammates, which it's quite a large gap given how well Ricciardo was holding Norris up here and had really good pace, but those fresher tyres really had a massive impact. So looking at all the lap times now, as you can see, nice and tight early on, and then later on, once Norris is pitted, Ricciardo is pretty much slowing every single lap during that period, which is to be expected, given Ricciardo had all the tyres. But again, great job from McLaren splitting the strategy and getting it right from both accounts. Stripping out the laps with pit stops then, just to look at true race pace, and as you can see, the start, Ricciardo definitely quite a bit faster in a few laps, but Norris doing a pretty good job, whereas the end it's kind of reversed there with Norris consistently quicker than Ricciardo as the race goes on. Now looking at the gaps lap by lap, as you can see, those first 15 laps really tight between the two. Ricciardo probably a little bit quicker and consistently so, but really tight. Once Ricciardo's got the new tyres, he obviously gains back to Norris, but once Norris puts on the fresher tyres, he's got that freshness pretty much the whole way, and especially those last 3 laps, Norris was a lot quicker than Ricciardo. Ricciardo having to fend a little bit from Gasly, but I think a lot of that had to do with the age of Ricciardo's tyres as well. So now moving on to the histogram, and you can see Norris consistently quicker here, a lot in that 0.1 to 0.3 that he's got, and also quite a few that are 1 second plus that he's been quicker than Ricciardo, whereas Ricciardo, most of his are 0.1 or 0.2 and not that many out here. So I think, look, from a race pace perspective, Norris was clearly quicker, but I think you do need to give a bit of a concession to Ricciardo in terms that he had older tyres the whole way. So the last 20 laps, Norris was pretty much always quicker, just based on that tyre deficit. So on the whole, I think Norris clearly the quicker driver on the weekend, but Ricciardo's got to be very happy with that outcome given the past 2 weekends, and do a relatively good job to secure that 6th place, and great weekend for McLaren overall. So that's the McLaren video. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more, subscribe, and feel free to check out the other videos from this race weekend. And any comments or suggestions, pop them down in the comments. Thank you.